Okay, today's Cardinal lesson, we're talking about a recurring subject here, which is the 401k millionaire. Are you a 401k millionaire? And it's by definition, between you and your spouse, have you got $1 million or more in your combined IRAs? And a lot of people out there, that's their situation. And this video isn't only for people in excess of $1 million. There's a whole lot of people with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800,000. And pieces of all this stuff apply to you as well, depending on your situation. But we're zeroing in on it today on the 401k millionaires. And a lot of them have more than $1 million in their 401k. So I'd like to push it to Tom, and I'd like Tom to share with you why we're doing this video today.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this video because there's a lot of people that come through our doors, and this might be you if you're watching this video, that have a lot of money built up in their 401ks or IRAs. We'll use those terms interchangeably, and they have no plan on how to get the money out. They never expected to have the amount they did, right? They feel very fortunate. It's almost become an idol now, right? That's their main focus, is just growing it. But there's no purpose to it. There's no plan for it. And oftentimes it ends up in a bad situation. And we'll get into a case study that shows you sort of where the pitfalls are. But if you don't have a plan on how to distribute this money, this video is for you. You need to watch this. You need to have a plan, because without a plan, oftentimes things can go sideways. And so let me bring up the show notes. You can find these below the link on our video. They're also on our website at cardinalguide.com. We have the board. And so again, we'll get into the example as we go through it. And again, we have some charts. We have a lot of show notes with these charts. This one is updated, it includes all the provisions after the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed. And so it has updated standard deduction, all those different things. So take a look at it, even if you've seen this chart before. And again, these are the tables that are used for RMD calculations. We're going to get into this in the show, but a lot of problems that arise with these 401ks, these growing balances of 401ks, is when RMDs start. RMDs, again, are required minimum distributions. It's when the IRS tells you have to start taking money out of the 401k. And so this is a big crux of where the issues arise when you don't have a distribution plan. So this is how you calculate it. We'll get into some examples as we go through. So let me turn it back to Hans. We'll go through this case study, and really, you'll see it really affects all the stuff we talk about in our videos.
Okay, so this case study that we're talking about today is a 68-year-old man, his 62-year-old wife. He's been retired for a few years. And we're going to work out of this box. And it's kind of hard to do a whole video on how this is a problem. I mean, it's pretty cool having $2.5 million in your IRA or 401k. It's probably why he retired 3 years ago. He said, man, I'm hanging this up, and I got plenty of money. Okay, so this couple, they came to us when they were signing up for Medicare. Okay, and they purchased Medicare supplement insurance from us, and then she purchased ACA coverage, and we schooled them. They've been watching our videos around, boy, we're going to keep the income, the combined income, under a certain number so that when he's on Medicare, he doesn't have to pay IRMAA. And we even did a IRMAA appeal, or we talked about one back when he was 65. We got her on ACA coverage and got a subsidy. So that's a big thing driving him living off of a lower income. I don't want to say this is bad, but it's kind of setting up a whole problem that we've identified for him. And the underlying problem is he's really got they really have no distribution plan in place for how they're going to distribute the $2.5 million to themselves, because it's in an IRA now. It was rolled over from a 401k to an IRA, and it's sitting there. It's invested very well. It's growing, and they're not pulling out but $7,000 a month. Okay, they're pulling out $7,000 a month. That's $84,000 a year, and they're basically living off of that. Okay, and you say, well, that doesn't sound too bad, and it's really not. Other than the fact they could be living on something more substantially, or if they're going to live on that kind of lowish amount relative to their lifestyle, then they've got to be figuring out, so what are they going to do with this $2.5 million, and what's it going to balloon to, and how are they going to, it's got to be for something. If it's not for you to live on for income, then it's going to be to pass to your heirs. And then what's going to be the tax situation of that? I mean, and so the whole crux of the video is dealing with what is a good problem to have, is we've got this large pot of money. We're only focused on the investment of it and doing quite well, but we got no plan for distribution. So what his plan at this point is, or this couple's plan, is they're drawing out $7,000 a month. And that's what they're living off of. And then they've delayed the Social Security till he's 70. And when he gets to be 70, their projected check between the two of them is going to be $7,000 a month. And in the absence of meeting us and discussing this, he's probably going to shut off the withdrawal and just start living off the $7,000 a month of Social Security and pay even less taxes, because Social Security all by itself doesn't create any taxes. So anyhow, so we're going through, and what we're going to be doing today is going through this example. And you got in black up here is their current situation, either as we found them or where they are right now, and going through each of the 7 worries. And so they're delaying Social Security. They have a Medicare supplement plan G on him. She has the ACA, and they're avoiding IRMAA. They purchased a $300,000 IRA long-term care annuity life long-term care combination, because at the beginning of this discussion, when I asked him, what's this $2.5 million for? It's really, he's just saving it up because they're afraid of long-term care. And that was his kind of push off, where I got that there. If we either need long-term care, we got the money, we'll just pay for it. And then I showed him how he can deploy $300,000 of that money, not pay taxes on it all at once, spread it over 10 years. And then, or I should say, we showed him, Tom and I did, where we can just spread that money out, transfer it over there, and then protect them. Because this makes a lot more tax sense than if you start paying a nursing home bill or an assisted living bill for 1 or 2 of you, and you're pulling it all out of taxable money when you're in your 80s or 90s. That's not a very pretty situation, the taxes that get created. So this all made sense to him. And he still has $2.5 million in his IRA, because this 300,000 was just a rollover. That's included in the $2.5 million. So he's drawn out the $7,000 a month. The only estate planning they've done is he has a trust, which I haven't really looked at yet. And then we've got beneficiaries on the IRA. So they're all set up. So that'll be done properly. And they got a will, but that's about it. And there's some really tax estate planning that needs to go on. And then they're paying income tax on 84 grand. And he's just like thinking, man, this is a great plan. And it really is being short-sighted, because what he's doing by paying that small tax on that with a standard deduction over 30 grand, I mean, he is leaving a bunch of money on the table at the 22% and the 24% rates. So what we're going to do today, I just want to bring Tom on. I've kind of presented the situation. I want to hear what Tom has to say about these people. And then we're going to go piece by piece through the 7 worries.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hans mentioned this is not a bad problem to have, right? It's like if they never met us, they were going to be okay, but it's not going to be the best it could be, right? I mean, it's, they might pay more in taxes than, I guess, okay, but a lot of their focus has been avoiding taxes, right? Avoiding IRMAA, trying to pay less in taxes, to wake up one day, especially when RMDs start. That's going to be after Social Security has kicked in. They're going to have stopped the withdrawals from the IRA, because now Social Security is taking that income spot. And this account balance is going to keep growing and growing and growing. And then RMD starts like, oh man, didn't think about that. That's going to start pushing them into IRMAA brackets alone, right? So now you've avoided IRMAA now just to pay it down the road. That's maybe not what you were thinking. And then the real problem comes in, we'll get to this when we go through each one, is when the first spouse passes away. Likely going to be, say, in their 80s. you start looking at that RMD chart, those percentages in the 80s start going up pretty high. And now you're filing taxes at a single tax filing rate. You have single IRMA brackets, and the income amount really hasn't changed that much because the RMD amount is still based off the total balance that has just been growing. And so, it's one of these things, and we see this all the time where people are focused on this balance in this 401k. They want to see it keep growing, which is understandable, right? That's been your main focus while you've been working, is just saving, investing, letting it grow, setting yourself up for retirement, which is great, right? It makes our planning easy. But the math switches, right? Now we're at retirement. Now let's start pulling money out. Let's start living off of it. And if we're not going to do that, then we need to set it up to pass on to the next generation. And so one of these things that's just underlying a lot of these videos and a lot of the clients we work with is you really need to have a plan of what this money is for. I can't tell you the amount of times that we've sat across the table from somebody. They say, I have this. And then we say, okay, how much do you want to spend? They're spending way less than they could. And they're comfortable, right? They don't see any problem with that, which is great. Say, okay, well, let's start planning for the future, right? If you're not going to spend it, it's going to go to somebody. They're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to leave a lot to my kids. And we just got to take a second and just say, wait a minute here. If you're not going to spend it, which is okay, it's not our job to tell you what to do with it. But if you're not going to spend it, and you're not going to leave it to the kids, what is it? What was all this for, right? I mean, what is the purpose of this money? Money is a tool. Money is something that allows you to do things. You need to be wise and planning with it. But without an idea of what's it for, you start just focusing on the money in and of itself, and that doesn't lead to good outcomes. And so either spend it or let's get on a strategy to give it to somebody, whether it's kids, charity, whoever. We just need to have a plan for it, and without that, I think it leaves, there's something lacking, right? You feel like you're missing something without a real purpose for it. So let me turn it back to Hans. We're going to go sort of one by one here, real quick. And like he had mentioned, the black one is where they currently are. The red is where there's some issues, and then the green is a potential recommendation, something that could help solve sort of the issue we see. So let's start with Social Security, and we'll go from there.
Well, actually, I'm going to go back to the example and the box down here and the $2.5 million and 68 years old, spouse is 62, living off of $7,000 a month. So they're chipping away a little bit at it, 84,000. But then he even brought up that chipping away is going to stop when Social Security starts in 2 years. And so I want to take you into this box right here, and we're going to just talk, because that's where we went. So they're drawing out $7,000 a month, and they're living below their desired lifestyle. And we could really hear this when we have a couple, and they kind of get aware of this. Is you could take out substantially more now and live off it, pay the taxes on it, and live off it. Okay, and they could. And then, I guess when she heard that, she's interested. Okay. And it really kind of came, we don't really need, we were down here, is that Roth conversions a lot of times are really for, actually it's here. The Roth conversions are for the kids. I mean, it's just, you're going to hand this big balloon of money over to them, and it's all going to be taxable. And, at least one of your kids, if not a couple of them or all three of them, are going to draw out a substantial amount of money, maybe all of it, in the first year they inherit it, pay a big tax bill, be left with about 60% of it or 55% of it. And now they got their money and use up a whole lifetime of work. And the lack of tax planning, it all gets paid in 1 year. That wouldn't be a very good situation. But when I'm going through that with a lot of couples, is they're kind of saying, look, if my kids have a tax problem down the road, then I'm not worried. They're inheriting a bunch of money. I'm not worried about that. I really don't even worry about leaving them a lot of money. Well, then, okay, that's what Tom was talking about earlier. Well, now we're back to what's the money for? If it's not for them, and it's not for the widow or widower, because you're thinking, well, they're in their 80s or 90s, when the first one of us passes away. I mean, so they're what? They got a tax problem. I mean, they're not going to really be spending a lot of the money. And people keep dissing all this stuff. And it takes us back to, well, why don't we address this problem? Why don't we start drawing out a little bit more and enjoying it? It doesn't have to be the whole amount, but you know, then as soon as we start doing that, we fire up this one where they're afraid of running out of money. They're saying, well, I don't want to do that because who knows what the market's going to do? And this money's all invested and it's growing. What if it goes way down? I don't want to start spending it. Um, okay, that's a concern. But if you pull it out, well, it's high, and pay the taxes and then spend the money or some of it, um, then the money isn't going to be there to go down. And we can address that in a lot of ways. And one of those is we can address them with annuities. So we can come up with where your own IRA is sending you a check every month and for a certain amount. And, it's like you pay the taxes and then what's left, you kind of need to spend or you just give it away. I mean, I have some clients after a while are doing this, are giving $10,000 a year to each kid. That adds up to $30,000. And maybe they have to withdraw 50 out of their IRA. And that's better than a Roth conversion and all that. And they do that every Christmas. And that's a great strategy. And they get the present value. The money gets to the grandkids. The people probably need it now. I mean, we can come up with an infinite amount of solutions. All I'm talking about is just sitting there with no distribution plan is not. And I already addressed the poor market performance, is that these are things that they're not even really addressing because I don't have a plan for the money anyhow. So let's just let it go. And all of a sudden it goes, I mean, I'm going to be bummed, but, and that's not really a good way to manage your money. So we could get into a little bit of how your money's allocated, asset allocation. We could get in with some of the money, maybe 20% or 40%. We could buy some annuities where we have some guaranteed performance, guaranteed check coming out at you. So, that's the first place we go. So I want Tom to just comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all gets back to the idea of sort of what is your purpose for this money? What is it for? And it's a hard question to answer, right? I understand that it's not as simple as we make it sound, but at the end of the day, there needs to be some purpose, right? I mean, if you sacrificed, and you might not have feeling like you were doing so, but if you were saving all this money while you were working, by definition, it means you weren't spending it, you weren't enjoying it, which is probably the wise thing to do, right? I'm not questioning that. But if I asked your 30-year-old self, why were you saving? It's like, oh, I'm saving for retirement. I mean, that's the obvious answer. And so you get there now at retirement, and it's hard to make that switch to start spending it. And I get that. But, if we're not going to spend it, then let's plan on leaving it to the kids. And so the people who say, well, I don't care how much tax they pay. Well, if that's really true, if we don't care how much they pay, why do you care how much you pay now, right? I mean, the tax is going is if we're not worried about taxes for them, why are you worried about them for yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, this money is going to get taxed, right? And I think that's something that people miss. The whole 401k is not your money, right? There is a lien against this account. It's going to get taxed at some point. And the question is, how much tax does it get? I mean, IRS is a silent partner in this agreement you have with them. So let's try to get them out at the lowest tax rate possible. When we're doing planning, we're looking at the life of this money and saying, how can we get this money out at the lowest tax rate possible? And that's where the Roth conversions come in. We're not talking about converting them all at once, right? It's systematic over time, sort of spread out over a number of years. But the whole goal is to get money out at the lowest tax rate possible over the life of the money, not in any individual year. And so, again, if that's you, if you're thinking, well, I don't really care how much they pay, just stop and think like, well, if you don't care how much they pay, why do you care how much you pay? Just pull it out and pay it and enjoy it, spend it, go take that trip, fly first class, whatever it is for you that you want to spend some money on. Let's do that. Now, again, within reason, right? We need to have some bounds around that. We don't want you to run out at some point, but really we're talking today the people who have no risk of ever running out because they're not spending near the amount they could. And let's just come up with a plan with how to do this the most efficiently. One of the other, and I'm going to take it back to sort of the other side of the board here in a second, is this Medicare. A common one is, well, if I do this, it's going to raise up my Medicare premium, right? If I do Roth conversions, that raises my taxable income, and that causes me to pay more in Medicare versus because of IRMAA. That's the increased cost for Medicare based upon your income. Which is true. All of that is absolutely true. If you do Roth conversions, it push you up to a point where IRMA is a factor. Um, my pushback on that, or one of the things I just want you considering, is if you have this amount of money in your IRA, you're going to have an IRMA problem, very likely. The question is it a problem now or is it a problem in the future? Right? Are we doing this intentionally, knowing that we're going to have some IRMA now to maybe avoid it later, or are we just waiting for RMDs to cause us to pay IRMA at some point anyways? And so again, that's not everybody's situation, but oftentimes RMDs plus Social Security plus your other income is going to push you up into the IRMA category anyways. And so it's, again, this is for people who have the money in the IRA. Those RMDs cause issues, and so you need to have a plan of how to get that out and not rely on the IRS's plan, because they have a plan for you. Oftentimes it's not the best one.
Well, this is all hoarding the money or just letting it accumulate and ignoring the problem till RMDs, which in our example's case is 5 years. It is just short-sighted because, and when you're doing it around IRMA, as Tom said, do you want to pay IRMA now? Or do you want to pay it by avoiding IRMA now? You're going to pay a ton of IRMA later, and it's going to be every year, especially for a single tax filer, for the widow or widower in their 80s and 90s living on. I want to point out for this example, he's only on Medicare. She's not yet. Now, it is going to drive down the subsidy on her health insurance, but that's going to be going away or significantly reduced anyhow. But he's the only one on Medicare. So if we do, this year, next year, the year after, we do some pretty substantial Roth conversions or just spending of the money, it's only going to drive up one IRMA bill year by year. So we already talked about long-term care. We're not going to get through all of these points today. We talked about income and some of the solutions. I mean, for these people, I'm thinking that we take the $7,000 a month, which they're going to be taking out indefinitely out of the IRA. Even when the Social Security starts at $7,000 a month, they're going to jump at age 70 to $14,000 a month for spending. And maybe you add another grand to that, it'd be $15,000 a month. So what we need to do is guarantee the $7,000 a month plus maybe another grand, or maybe you do $8,000 a month for life. And we're going to do that through an annuity, and that's not going to take a substantial amount of the 2.5 million. So that would be an asset allocation where we're going to take a chunk of the money and we're going to guarantee the $8,000 a month for life. And then we could take this $7,000 out of the IRA and guarantee it for 2 years so that they have the $15,000 a month to spend now. We can just pull that out of the IRA, turn it into cash. And so we could ramp up these people's lifestyle to $15,000 a month. They could do it. I mean, we're not doing it. To $15,000 a month minus taxes on that. There'll be more taxes on that, but they're still going to have a substantial increase in their lifestyle, or they could just give the money away. However they want to do it, and then do Roth conversions on top of that. So we got to take care of the income planning. We can guarantee it out for life. And it's just, we can do that with their bond allocation or their fixed income allocation within the 2.2 million anyhow. Beneficiaries on the IRA. I mean, for estate planning, we really need to focus on the tax problem, either for the widow or widower, for the person collecting RMDs, and then ultimately for the kids, because the kids are going to get the residual. And if he leaves things alone, he's going to be living a lot of money to the kids if they don't follow our advice. Yeah, and really, the last section is just talking about income taxes, this leaving the top of the 24% bracket for a couple. If you look on the chart in there, is about 380 grand. So, every year that they file an income tax return with 84 grand, they're leaving about 300 grand on the table, potentially. I'm not recommending that they do that amount, because I already showed you a ramp up in their lifestyle for consideration. But the amounts above that, they're going to pick their amounts and pay current taxes and get it moved over into the Roth account. And then the Roth account can continue to grow and can be available to the widower or both of them, and later in life to draw out tax-free income or to pass on to the kids tax-free. Just putting together a whole tax plan within this. So I want to just, Tom, for some final thoughts before I hit all the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been through most of it. I think the biggest takeaway is if you need a plan for the distributions of the IRA, either Roth conversions, living off of it, whatever it is, you need to have a thought through plan that not only considers this year but future years too, right? Because oftentimes people are making decisions looking at this one individual year, which is understandable. But it's again short-sighted. They're missing the bigger picture. They're missing what things look like in 10, 15 years from now. And again, one thing that is just hugely important, and it's oftentimes it's pretty sad when we're having to sort of walk through this, is that widow's tax, if you will, is when the first spouse passes, and now we're having to file taxes at single rates. Everything essentially gets cut in half, right? Tax brackets, you get there twice as fast. IRMA brackets are reduced. I mean, it's just all of a sudden, yes, you lose one of the Social Security checks, but it's the smaller one. So at the end of the day, you have a similar level of income at higher taxes, higher costs. And it's oftentimes at the kind of worst situation time when they're dealing with it, right? Where they're dealing with the grief, they're dealing with the loss of a loved one, and now they're having to deal with higher taxes. I mean, it's ugly. And so I want you to think through when you're planning, not just now, but also into the future. And I think that's the best way to go about doing so. And so if you have questions, call us. We do this type of planning all the time. And again, people, once they're done with it, they feel much better about the plan they have in place, as opposed to just sort of wondering or questioning, am I doing this right? Should I do Roth conversion? Should I not? We don't recommend Roth conversions for everybody, right? We talk a lot about it because it's one of the things that often is missed. But some situations, it doesn't make sense, right? So everyone's situation is different. It needs to be part of a larger plan. So give us a call and we'll be happy to help.
Okay. So we've touched on all 7 worries today. We do financial plans for people all over the United States. We can do one for you. We're licensed in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. We do this by Zoom. We don't charge for initial consultations. We started down here with the 401k, talked about Social Security, Medicare, and especially IRMA. We had already solved for this couple the long-term care problem, and we did it with IRA money, spread the distributions out over 10 years. As far as income, this is the biggest bogeys, is they're living below their lifestyle. And I think that once they're given some understanding of this and they get done with the plan, I think they're going to feel good about having more money for themselves while they're still young and healthy. Estate planning, we talked about that. We talked about an income tax plan. I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.